Kanagutbihin, welcome to SUAANGAN. I'm Patrick Joe. The 17th Annual Great Northern Arts Festival is a smashing success. Producer Dennis Allen brings us this story. Welcome to SUAANGAN, Our Strength, right here on APTN.
The festival began with an artist and a gallery owner. They wanted to showcase northern artists who were in need of a venue to expose their art. Little did they know that 17 years later, it would be going this strong. The festival is housed in the Midnight Sun Recreation Complex, a multi-use facility capable of hosting several venues at one time. With a community center, curling rink, a hockey rink, and plenty of office space, the complex is the perfect venue for such an event. Coordinator Christina Wilsden has had her hands full pulling this year's event together.
It's been a very interesting challenge. It's been busy and lots to do. I only came on in March and there was so much organizing to do and the learning curve that was just crazy horrendous, but learned so much and it's been a fascinating experience.
The Western Arctic has produced some of Canada's most well-known Inuit artists, including the Rubin brothers from Polituk, Abraham and David. Abraham lives in British Columbia. He makes time in his busy schedule to come home and take part in the festival.
My name is Abraham Rubin. I was born in November 1951 in an area called the Coal Mines southeast of Polituk. My father was born on one of the small islands outside of Tuk. My mother was born, I believe, in Lady Harbor.
Abraham's parents, the late Bertha and Billy Rubin, are well-known artists as well.
They were married in 1941, then started a family along with other young couples who were in the area. My father was a hunter and a trapper, and my mother took care of things in the house and the family and was a seamstress and provider in the house.
The stories he heard as a child come full circle as he brings them to life in stone.
In the old culture, the animals had an established place, birds and animals and living things. The Inuit belief was that these animals had souls. They were imbued with a soul similar to the human soul, but soul nevertheless. With the advent of Christianity at the turn of the century, the missionaries felt that, not just felt, but they believed that only humans have souls. And they impressed on their followers that humans have souls, animals don't have souls, so that there's no, within a generation or two, the tie that held the land and the people together were severed. You know, the respect for the animals. This is, I'm talking about something that was intact for thousands of years. In one generation or two generations, that relationship was severed.
Like Abraham, others create art as a form of communication. They have a need to say something. Art gives them that freedom. It speaks in different ways.
My name is Caroline Blackard and I'm from Yellowknife. I do porcupine quills and beadwork on a loom, and I make bracelets and earrings and necklaces. Well, I started when I was 12 doing beadwork, from watching my nana do beadwork on mucklucks and moccasins, and that's sort of where I got my inspiration from. And then I started using porcupine quills about 2 years ago, and then a year later I started selling them in art galleries.
This is Carolyn's first visit to the festival. It gave her a chance to connect with her family roots as well.
It's really, really interesting just to see like all the other artwork and all the other artists and meeting so many new people. And yeah, it's just so amazing because I haven't ever been to a festival before. And so this is actually where my mom grew up in Inuvik. So I finally get a chance to check out where she was born and all her traditions.
Sculptor Eli Nasagalawak, originally from Tuktoyaktuk, is a well-known artist. He gives back to the community through workshops for interested carvers.
Just get it all brown as you can. It'll be nice to start to get smooth. My artwork began in my early days as sketching and drawing, but lately I've moved into soapstone sculpting and carving, and other mediums such as ice sculpting and snow sculpting also. So mainly right now what I'm doing is mainly stone sculpting right now.
Eli was part of a team that produced this massive marble sculpture in 1997. It was commissioned for the 10th anniversary of the Great Northern Arts Festival. The sculpture represents unity and diversity of the North. Eli's brother Bill was part of the team as well. The stone was quarried on the Great Bear Lake. It took several months to complete and sits now in front of the Visitor Center in Inuvik, Northwest Territories.
SUAANGAN will be right back with more of the Great Northern Arts Festival right here on APTN. SUAANGAN, Our Strength, returns with more of the 17th Annual Great Northern Arts Festival right here on APTN.
It started in my early days in stone carving when I was about 10 years old growing up in Tuktoyaktuk. Well, it's good to see the growth of the festival from its early days. I mean, in a 7-year span, there's a lot of changes. I know sometimes some years are downsized more than other years, such as this year is not as much artists this year as the other years. You know, it always depends on, I guess, the financial part of it. But the part I enjoy coming here is seeing some of the artists again, which you don't see for a few years, and then meeting with them again, and then you know, seeing them develop also into new techniques, and myself too. So it's a give and take thing, which I really like.
Eli has been attending the Arts Festival since it began. He is a mainstay attraction here in Inuvik.
I'm a glass and stone artist, so I create different things in glass and stone, obviously. Either stained glass or glass fusing, and I do sort of a unique thing where I use actual rocks that I gather, you know, and solder them together, make vessels or, you know, just bowls, pots. Because yeah, it's the same as soldering anything.
Yep.
But the only thing is when metal has to stick to metal.
Yeah.
It can't just stick to glass. If I put it on the glass, it'll just
fall apart.
It falls off.
Okay.
So it's the metal that makes it stick together.
One familiar face at the festival is logistics coordinator Tom Smith. Tom started as a volunteer when the festival began. He's worked his way up the management ladder.
Well, 17 years now. Yeah. Started off as a volunteer, then ended up working there. Finally get paid. Oh, I love it, because also when you go in the gallery, when you go all over the place, you could see all these here you get to see all this here great looking art there on the wall, and you see when you go out into the tent, you see them start from scratch, you know. And when then they bring it inside the curling rink side, then they sand it in there, water sand it in there, and then they polish it, and when they bring it into the gallery, you could see that end result, and it, you basically, I see it from scratch to finish, eh?
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of fun too.
Oh yeah. And it makes the day go by so fast too, and every year it always seems so short. The 10 days seems so short. It seems only like 5 days.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like the whole town comes out and.
Oh heck yeah.
Yeah.
Meet a lot of different people, the tourists that comes. Yeah. Okay then, I'll wait for you then.
Tommy is always on the go, whether he's finding a table for a carver or setting up a workshop.
Just building a catwalk for tonight's fashion show. And then after I do this, I go look for the carpet to put down here, and then look for the staples. Then staple that down and put the siding on it to make it look good for the public.
Tommy knows where everything is. If you can't find it, ask Tommy. If you can't fix it, ask Tommy. He's the MacGyver of the festival.
It's not only the stage, it's in the gallery where the workshops are held, and set up the tables and get what they need for their workshops. And then also upstairs in the banquet room, in that seminar room, just to see if everything's okay with them, and if they got all this, the flip charts, the overhead projector, the video, and that.
So you take care of pretty much all the logistics, I guess, eh?
Yeah.
So is that what your logistics coordinator?
Yeah, I'm logistics, well, it says here, logistics coordinator.
I'll wait for her to come back in then.
Okay then.
Thanks,
I
Tommy.
can tell her you're looking for.
One has to get up really early to get anything past Tommy. He's usually the first one at the site, making certain the coffee's on and the boys are ready to rock.
Getting these pedestals and get them painted, and we're rushed around on Friday, just for rushing around to get everything ready for the opening night on Friday. And the girls did a real good job of putting things up and displaying things.
So what do you think so far? Pretty good turnout for this year?
It's kind of a little bit slow this year, not like previous years, but I don't know what the sales are because I'm...
So, the next time you're at the festival and you see Tommy buzzing around like a buzzsaw, stop and pat him on the back for a job well done. Thanks for all the hard work, Tom. We'll see you again next year, same time, same place. Hunting is a big part of life here in the north, and you always need a good knife. So, when knife maker George Roberts pulled into town, people naturally lined up to see his wares. We caught up with George as he was putting an edge on his salesmanship.
When you polish off the steel like that, it gets that grain?
When you profile it, the grain comes out, yeah. So
it's repeating like that.
yeah, it's repeating. We'll see what happens is, like, all the little patterns that you've seen in there. And so you can configure the pattern, to whatever you want. There's other things you can do that they're doing today is they're taking stuff like carbide, right? They're making a name, let's say centrifuge. Right? They make a name out of this little block. Then they forge that in between two bars.
We sat down with George and got the lowdown on making knives, George Roberts style.
Well, back in the late 70s, I was involved in partnership with a fly and fishing lodge. And it became apparent that the knives that we were buying and using weren't standing up.
With little else to do but sit and whistle, George's curiosity got the best of him.
So tried to figure out what was going on and why not, and because I'd remembered as a child, young fella always having knives, and they were always seemed to be quite well made and stood up very good. And then all of a sudden they didn't. And so I started to do a little research and find out about what I was working with. And I found out that the knives that we were buying were made offshore, and they were of inferior quality. And so I thought, well, the best thing to do is get some good ones made. So I started to look for somebody to make some good knives. So in my old hometown of London, Ontario, there was an old blacksmith there, and I went to see him, and he basically told me that that old process wasn't being done much anymore, and it really wasn't worth his time to do any for me.
SUAANGAN will be right back with more of the Great Northern Arts Festival right here on APTN. SUAANGAN, Our Strength returns with more of the 17th Annual Great Northern Arts Festival right here on APTN.
And not one to take no for an answer, George persisted. And as the old saying goes, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
And I would go there on a weekly basis and bother him to help me. And finally one day he said, young man, he said, you certainly seem to have a lot of time on your hands. He said, tell me more about it. Eh? So I explained to him again what I needed and why. And so he agreed to, if I could give him time, he would give me time and teach me a little bit of how to work with steel, make my own. So I thought, well, there's no better way to do it, no other way, so we'll go ahead. Eh? So I would give him 6 hours and he would give me 2 hours, which seemed like a fair trade, and I was learning. So first I learned the old method of hammering steel, spikes or whatever, into blades. And we used them at the lodge, and the problem was they rusted and had a lot of brittle problems and things like that. So I, again in the off season, went to the library and started to research on different metals and where they come from and all this and that and whatever to find something better.
What he found eventually was the key to the highway, surgical steel.
And I ended up in a university in Toronto, speaking to a metallurgist fellow there. And he turned me on to what we're using today as stainless steels in a surgical grade. And that's what I've been using ever since that day, so, which has been near 27 years now.
George took us through the process of making a knife from a pattern to the final product.
First of all, you would take this piece of steel, and if this was your pattern made that you drew out of paper, you would lay it on here, mark it out, and then this is a bimetal bandsaw blade. Very tough blade, harder than most ordinary bandsaw blades. You would use this to saw this out. There's other methods you could use, but most of us would use this. From this process, you would then glue it up, and you would scribe lines on here, as I can show you one here. This knife has been cut out of sheet steel like this, and then you would put these, glue it, and put these lines on here, so as you're grinding it...
So, sorry, you glue it?
You glue it?
Just paint it?
Yes, this is painted.
Oh, is that a special paint, or...?
Well, this is called layout dye.
Oh, okay,
layout bluing.
Okay.
Yeah, you could use magic marker.
Okay,
Doesn't matter, whatever you got. I use this because I buy it in a big can.
Yeah, okay.
So you put these lines, or you scribe these lines on here in increments of 1/8 of an inch up the blade. You also put center lines on down here, so that you know where the center of the blade is, so that when you're grinding off, you don't go past the center, right, over to the other side of the blade, and you grind up these lines, not passing this top line.
Oh yeah, okay.
This is the start of the grinding process.
Okay.
As you can see, you start grinding up the lines, and you finally get to this line, right?
Yeah.
And from that point, after we get both sides the same, the knife would be ready for heat treating.
Okay.
So heat treating is a very critical process. It's the heart and soul of the steel.
Yeah.
If that's not done correctly, you don't have anything. You know. And they come back, they look like this. So we need to clean this up again on a polisher. Then it's going to look like this.
Okay.
In the design of this blade and most of my blades, you'll find multiple holes. They're used for two reasons. One is for pinning the handles on. The other one is for balance of this knife, so it doesn't become back heavy or front heavy. The third thing it does is when we epoxy the handles on before pinning, these holes make a little pocket from one side to the other, which the epoxy bonds to, and it becomes like a little welded plug. The bolster is nothing more than 2 blocks of brass. This here is what they call 360 grade brass, presentation grade brass.
Okay.
It's a little better than standard brass because it has some bronze mixed in with it.
Yep.
So it holds its shine a little longer, more wear resistant, a little tougher. And what I do to work with this stuff is, as you can see, to make both of these sides the same, we simply glue 2 bars of this together, epoxy, and then when we saw them out into this shape of the knife, that it's going to fit on the knife, you have both sides at one time. This is one piece that we were working on yesterday. As you can see, it looks kind of funny right now with the handles, you know, so big compared to the bolster. But you can also see the bolster, how we have made it round, profiled it. Now when we contour the handle to fit this, this becomes our handle shape. Yeah, so the dovetailing helps lock in the front of the handles.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't come down or up?
Yeah, it can't come down, it can't come up, it can't come out,
Okay.
because it's wedged in there. And the pins go through the side, not allowing it to shift backwards if the epoxy ever came loose. And the epoxy, as you can see, is inside of here, which will be removed on the surface as we shape the handle.
From this process, let's join George and a group of students, including myself, who took his knife making workshop.
To another location, right? Until you work all the way around. See how it's taking it off right down to the metal? Yeah. You also got to make sure you keep square. Okay? You don't want to get it off on a real bad angle. Okay? That takes very, very little pressure. Don't go too much on there yet. Stay on the flat. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look. It's important to stop and look every few minutes, and feel your work. So you feel right here, you can feel a big ridge there.
Yeah.
Right?
Just gonna take that out?
Yeah, just go up and down and take it out.
Jolly from Pang made 2 knives today. Leave no bone undone is his motto. Way to go, Jolly. A little buffing to bring out the shine, and we're ready to do some serious butchering.
Well, that was our show for this week. Tune in again next week for more of SUAANGAN, Our Strength, right here on APTN. Until then, I'm Patrick Joe. Kuyanakpak.
For copies of this program or any other copies of SUAANGAN, contact the Inuvialuit Communication Society at Post Office Box 1704, Inuvik NT, X0E0T0. Call 867-777-2320, fax 867-777-2744, or email swangan@northwesthell.net.